Hello, everybody. I'm back. It was my birthday yesterday, January 19th. I'm 35 years old now, but I feel like I'm 85 right now. As some of you may already know, I was under the weather this week. Pretty sure my wife and I both came down with COVID. We actually have a test scheduled for tomorrow with our doctor. As I'm sure a lot of you guys know, there's a lot of shortages with the testing. And so it's taken us a little bit to get a test, but thankfully tomorrow we'll be able to get tested. My symptoms came in Monday night pretty heavily, and that first night and that first day on Tuesday were rough. But I've been making steady improvements since then, and I'm happy to be here. I couldn't stay away from you guys for too long, but still a little bit under the weather. Not feeling too hot. It does take a little bit of effort to move around the house and whatnot, but no shortness of breath, thankfully. And my fever seems to have been resolved. I guess it's gone away, and yeah, it's just a little bit of fatigue and stuff like that, but feeling much better. I don't know, is my color back? I think my color is back, but yeah, I feel good, and I'm happy to be with y'all. So let's go ahead and get started on this video. And I should have prepared first. Why didn't I do that? Okay, so what I'd like to do is go through my investment portfolio that I have set up for 2022. Investing is something that I've done for a little while now. It really started around 2012, 2013. And although I don't consider myself a crazy expert, I feel like I do know my way around how to use my money to make me money, right? So I figured, this being a Tesla channel, and there's a ton of Tesla fans and folks that follow Tesla that are big fans of investing and are also familiar in investing, I figured I'd share what my portfolio looks like. I'm not necessarily to convince you to invest in what I've invested. This is absolutely not financial advice, but to just give you visibility into what I put my money into so that you have a better understanding of where my investment thesis comes from. And yeah, if there's helpful information from that you can use for yourself, great. If not, great. But I figure I share. And I'll share percentages. I won't share actual dollars. I don't feel comfortable sharing exactly, how much my net worth is or anything like that. But I do feel comfortable sharing what percentages of my money is invested, in each bucket. And I go from highest allocation to lowest allocation so that you can kind of follow along and see where most of my money is. The first one's real estate, which is 47%. So this is both our primary residence and our investment properties. And these are all in Austin, in the Austin area of Texas. And the reason why it's Austin, Texas is because, if you remember way back in 2020 now, it feels like forever ago, when Tesla announced the opening of Giga Texas, we saw that as a major opportunity to get into the real estate market in that area. And so we try to shift as much of our, savings and other assets that we had into trying to purchase properties in that area. And so far, it's worked wonderfully, especially for our primary residence. We got in at the perfect time in 2020, it seemed, when we purchased our house. The property is already basically doubled since we purchased it, and it doesn't seem like there's any end in sight. And so the Austin real estate market, in my opinion, is one of the best ones in the country right now. But we do see very good growth in real estate across the entire country. And so there's other places where people can definitely make money from real estate, but Austin seems like a really, really big one, and one that we're very happy to have taken advantage of. Long term, we'll probably continue to add to this bucket. It does seem like real estate in this area has a very long ramp, I guess, especially with Tesla finishing the construction of Giga Texas and all the other businesses that are coming around. Samsung just announced a new chip plant, I believe in Taylor, which isn't that far from Austin, $17 billion factory. That's huge. You have a bunch of other tech companies coming to Tesla, and there's so much land here. There's so much land, and there's a lot of room for expansion. And so if you think you're a company that can take advantage of the sort of very business-friendly environment that Texas offers, then obviously more people will be attracted to places that have a lot of jobs, which means that land will come at a premium. The more and more people want to move to that area to take part of those jobs, right? So we're excited about that one, and we think it's going to continue to grow. And anytime we see an opportunity to get more property, we will. All right, at number 2 is Tesla stock. Tesla stock is 39% of our holdings. And this one's probably pretty obvious. I worked at Tesla for 4 years, been following the company since 2012, 2013. Probably the best company in the world. One of the most, in my opinion, safe investments you can make in the stock market. I have very high conviction on the company, and I do think it's going to perform extremely well. I think 2022 is going to be a stellar year for Tesla from a profitability perspective. And as full self-driving ramps up, that's going to bring in a ridiculous amount of profit. And it's going to be very fascinating to see how the stock market reacts to it, especially with the recent price hike of full self-driving to 12,000. What that tells me is that Tesla is really becoming confident in what they're offering in that suite. And once they reach their full self-driving goal of being as good or better than a human driver in most cases, then I think the market should start realizing that as a win. And they should value the company appropriately. And what's going to be really interesting to see is as the years go by, I'm curious to see if the Tesla bucket, so 39%, will end up becoming much larger than the real estate bucket, not because we've stopped buying real estate, but because Tesla is growing so much faster than the real estate that we have. So I kind of have a bet with myself, I guess, that in 5 years, that our Tesla holdings can be significantly higher than our real estate holdings because of what the growth trajectory looks like for Tesla. So I'm excited to see that, and I think it's going to be big, man. It's going to be big. But if you watch my channel, you already know that. So yeah, exciting stuff ahead for Tesla, and I'm curious to see where it goes. All right, the next one is Coinbase stock, and that's 5%. The way I view Coinbase is they seem to be a very good company. Their UI is very, very good. I'm very happy with their website, how easy it is to navigate. They offer a lot of different crypto solutions. I do like their CEO quite a bit. I've watched his interviews. That's one thing I always do when I try to invest in the company. I try to get to know the leaders a little bit, kind of watch videos about them. And so this is a trend for the rest of the companies that list. They direct listed to the stock market. They're a profitable company already with tremendous growth ahead of it, potentially if crypto really does take off. And that's really one of my ways to get into the crypto play, I guess, is by holding Coinbase. And I do think long-term, the company has a lot of potential. I think the things they're doing around NFTs here, where they'll have a marketplace for NFTs, and the way they have institutional customers and just retail customers, and how they use their service to allow people to buy cryptocurrencies, I think is great. But longer term, I'm curious if Coinbase will just turn into sort of like a I don't know, like a World Bank or something, like the ability for people to just, across borders, essentially a borderless way for people to have access to capital. So I do think Coinbase is unique in that respect. And, I'm curious to see where it goes. It is, I consider 5% a significant chunk of our net worth, but I do think there's long-term potential for the company, and I'm very curious to see where it goes. And I'm excited for its long-term potential. All right, the next one is cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is at 3%. And over 80% of that is Bitcoin, with a little bit of both Dogecoin and Cardano. Now, I do like Bitcoin quite a bit. I just like the whole, borderless transactional thing where you can sort of trade funds with anybody in the world without a middleman. That's pretty powerful, and I think it means a lot. Its recent run since, for the last 10 years has been pretty spectacular to see, which tells me that there's a lot of demand for it, and you have more and more institutions recommending people hold crypto and especially Bitcoin in their portfolios. And so I think longer term, Bitcoin has a lot of potential. But I also have Dogecoin because of Elon. He loves Dogecoin. Mark Cuban loves Dogecoin, and it does seem like it's a decent enough solution for a transactional currency. So I have a little bit in that. And then Cardano, I also have a little bit. I do think I did sell it for a brief moment a few days ago and bought just Dogecoin with that money. But then I'm like, man, you know what? I probably shouldn't have done that. I still believe in the solution. So I sort of sold half of the Dogecoin, and then I bought back into Cardano. So I do like the founder of the crypto, Charles Hoskinson. He seems like he's a bright guy and somebody who wants to do good for the world. And it does seem to be a platform that is very, very cheap to run and also very, very fast. It just needs, I think, a bigger user base. So over time, I'm curious to see if that becomes a reality. And that's why I've put a little bit of money into that. All right, the next one is ARKG, which is ARK Invest's genomics fund. And the reason why I'm invested in ARKG is because the long-term potential of genomics, so things like CRISPR and other solutions, seem to be very, very profound and crazy, where you can really tailor, medicine and things like that, and gene editing or whatever to improve people's lives. Seems like a huge deal. And what's even more shocking is, especially with recent trends, when I was looking at the charts. And actually, one of my friends walked me through this just yesterday, actually. So this is a very recent investment of mine. Literally this morning, I bought some ARKG. Is that the price earnings ratios for some of these companies, especially CRISPR, is in the teens, right? So I think CRISPR, if I remember correctly, is like 17 or 18 price earnings, maybe even 19. Thinking about a company that's in its growth stage and is not really established, and they're being given such a low multiple, of price earnings of 19, yet its true potential is really, really long term. I feel like that is a complete steal. But instead of buying directly into CRISPR, I chose to go with ARKG because I'm not familiar enough with CRISPR as a company, but I do trust Kathy Wood and her judgment. So I would rather just invest in the genomics fund. And so I purchased some ARKG. ARKG and Coinbase as well. These are very long-term investments, and they're in the IRA account. And I'm curious to see, long-term where they go. It's not something that I'm, looking at every day, but I do think genomics have a very, 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 very high potential long-term. And so I'm going to throw some money in there, see where it goes. All right. The next one is Hertz stock. That one is 1%. And the reason why I bought Hertz is because they're really the first player outside of Tesla that has come out very aggressively and said, we're going to really invest heavily with like hundreds of thousands of cars to create a fleet of self-driving cars so that we can start servicing our customers in that way, right? So that seems like a very bold move, especially nowadays where there seems to be a lot of hesitancy around self-driving, and really the self-driving trials are around, companies like Waymo or other very small scale, kind of in a corner of a city somewhere, right? Just kind of, they make it seem like a huge deal, but they're barely making any impact. But Hertz is saying, yep, we're going to start buying 100,000 Teslas, and we're going to buy more EVs. And then long term, what our goal is to become a fleet service provider for full self-driving cars. That to me seems like a great idea. And Hertz just exiting bankruptcy, I do think gives them a sort of a blank slate to rebuild a business, and I think having that sort of vision and that sort of commitment from the get-go, I think goes a long way. And so I figured, let's throw 1% of the net worth towards that and see where it takes us. But I do think long term, they have a lot of potential as long as they execute against that vision. And yeah, I think they could potentially be a very, very big player in the self-driving market. All right, the next one is Shift4 Payments, which is 1%. And the reason why I purchased Shift4 is because they are the payment provider for the Starlink satellites. The CEO of the company, Jared Isaacman, which you may have heard his name from the Inspiration 4 mission. He is the CEO of the company, and he was also the person that funded Inspiration 4, which was that all-civilian crew that went up in space for SpaceX, right? So I already kind of like that relationship that Elon and Jared have. But Shift4 is a payments provider for Starlink, for the Starlink satellite. And if I'm thinking long-term, Starlink's going to have tremendous potential in the telecommunications space. And so having a payment provider like Shift4, if they continue being the payment provider for Starlink, I do think that they are going to benefit tremendously from that relationship because, it is my belief that Starlink is going to become probably the biggest telecom in the world, probably in the next decade, as they, chip away at AT&T or Verizon, these satellite companies and whatnot. There's a lot of potential there for Starlink. If Starlink ever goes public, I'm going to throw so much freaking money at it. But in the meantime, Shift4 is kind of my way of investing into Starlink by proxy. I'm excited about the prospects of the company. I do think they're going to do really, really well long term. And so I threw some money at it to see what it does. And then lastly, it's cash in US dollars, and that's 2%. Now, this one's probably a little obvious. It's not a bad idea to have a little bit of cash laying around to ensure that it covers your expenses and any surprises and things like that. So we have a little bit of cash. We try not to keep our cash on hand too high, because, things like inflation will eat away at it. Just, especially nowadays where the yearly inflation rate seems to be at 7%. Feels much higher, but they're reporting it at 7%. Yeah, just a little bit of cash on hand just to cover expenses and to make sure that, we have something liquid in case something happens and we're able to deploy it right away. And that's a breakdown of the investments. Let me know what you thought. Were you surprised by any of them? Do you think there are opportunities out there that I'm not looking at that maybe I should consider for my portfolio? Do you think I should not have any of those, or are the ones that stick out that you don't think are good investments? curious to hear your thoughts. I'm always open to feedback on this stuff. But yeah, let me know what you think. I'm also curious. I'm playing around with lighting a little bit. And I have this main light shining on me. But this one I turned off. And it's giving me this like cool cinematic look thing that, we've learned from other awesome YouTubers that, create content around how to make your studio look good or whatever. What do you think about this? Should I keep this? Should I not keep it? I have a light here that I can turn on and make it brighter, but I chose to keep it off because, I don't know, I just felt a little moody today. I don't know, maybe because I'm sick, but yeah, let me know what you think. Should I keep this? Should I make it brighter? Does it distract you? Let me know. I really appreciate you watching this video. If you liked it, throw me a like. If you want to see more stuff from me, click subscribe. If you want to join the channel, I have join right below this video. And you can also become a patron by clicking on the Patreon link in the description. I also have a podcast series on this channel, which you can also listen to on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast app. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.